All right, welcome everyone to this special series in the lead up of the Be Your Light conference, which will take place on 6th and 7th of September in Ghent, Belgium. This series of conversations we are having with our speakers, with their mission, their message, and people who are not just here to inform, but really to transmit something. And today I'm sitting down with Matt Cooke. Matt Cooke is a global manifestation coach, very respected, and he sits here with me today. He blends ancient spiritual principles with modern science to help people reprogram their reality through intention, alignment, and frequency. Matt will be speaking at our conference, and he will be speaking about the power of intention. But before we dive deeper into the topic, I'd like to get to know Matt a bit better, the story behind the man, so to say, and the energy behind the message. So Matt, I'd like to welcome you. We are very grateful to have you on the show today as our second speaker. And before we dive into what intention and frequency, energy is all about, who are you? Who is Matt Cooke? And how did you become the person and coach and spiritual teacher and manifestation expert that you are today?
Jonathan, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. Wow, what a deep question to start with. And this is so synchronistic because that was the exact question that started my whole spiritual journey. I was in real estate for 10 years. And in September 2018, like I'm sure a lot of people can resonate with if they're in the corporate world, I was going through a season of extreme stress to a point where I was struggling to breathe. I had a very tight chest. And my wife's grandmother recommended that I had reflexology to help. I'd never had it before, but I agreed, and she said it would help. And I went over to her house. I'd never met this therapist before. And as I'm lay there on the couch, thinking I was just going to have reflexology, the therapist turned and he said, "So Matt, tell me who you are."
Okay.
And I said, "Oh, well, I'm 26 years old. I'm an estate agent, and I'm the youngest manager in my company." And he said, No. I didn't ask what you did for a living. I asked who you are. And I remember in that moment, my whole world came crashing down. Who am I? Who am I? And I realized in this moment that there was a person beneath the suit, beneath the title. And I didn't know. I didn't know who I was. But I knew in that moment that I wasn't happy. I wasn't happy as this estate agent. So the I in all of this is exactly where that started, Jonathan, exploring more of that. And I was very unhappy at the time in my job in real estate. And I was searching for ways to answer this question. And that led me to some motivational videos online. And this all led to one experience in February 2019, about 6 months later. I was still in my corporate job. And I was lying in bed with my wife one evening. And we were watching something on the laptop. And as I turned over to go to sleep, I was still aware of the world around me. So I was sort of like half in and out. My wife was still watching Netflix. And out of nowhere, Jonathan, my whole entire body just started to vibrate. It was a very strange sensation that started to spread across me. And I was intrigued. It wasn't painful, so I allowed it to continue. And then it got to a point where it felt like I was almost hovering above my bed. And then I heard this very high-pitched ring in both my ears. And it went silent. And I heard a voice. And the voice said, "Matt, it's Mom. Can you hear me?"
Wow.
And it completely blew me away because my mother passed away 18 months before that. And here I am having a conversation with her. And my wife could hear it. So she nudged me and she said, "Matt, who are you talking to?" And I turned to tell her and turned back, and my mum had gone. So this whole experience led to this, and my world changed again. I was absolutely fascinated to understand how I just connected with someone that's no longer here. I wanted to connect with her again. It was a deep desire, of course, So that led me down this path of understanding reality. Well, hang on a moment. If I've just connected with my mum who's no longer here physically, well, where is she and how can I connect with her again? And the type of brain I have to break down the mechanics of everything. And that, of course, led to quantum mechanics. And very simply remembered what I'd forgotten at school, that, of course, everything is energy. And I was very interested in this unifying field of energy that creates all things physical. And as I started exploring that, Jonathan, I then started to understand this concept of vibration and frequency and attraction and manifestation. So who am I now from that experience? As you articulated at the start, I'm someone who spreads this message in this light. There's more to reality than meets the eye. I'm not a medium, but I help people connect with that field of intelligence that unifies all things.
Mm-hmm. I resonate very much with your message, and thank you for sharing such a deep personal story, your experience with your mother. I told you before in a personal conversation that I recently attended a retreat of Dr. Joe Dispenza in Mexico. And I had the same, not a similar experience about my mother, but I also was in a state at some point where my entire body started vibrating. And something happened to me in that moment. I still can't really fathom what exactly, but there was a deep emotional release that took place, and also a physical healing in that moment. It's very difficult to explain to people what exactly is going on, but I can very much understand what you're talking about. So would you say that this experience for you marked a radical shift in your understanding of life and energy?
Oh, 100%. Of course, I wanted to believe in a thing called the afterlife, but, not until this experience. This is my truth, of course. I'd never connected with a medium or anyone else. And I knew I didn't want to be a medium. I was more interested in this exchange of energy and this frequency. And I had this epiphany that I didn't consciously try and connect. It started 6 months before in the I question, who am I? And that the sequential unfolding from there naturally changed my frequency. And it was obviously easier for my mother to align with me. So then as I started to understand manifestation, I realized it's a game of resonance, very simply. But a big foundational part of my message, Jonathan, is that we have to move beyond wanting, because wanting carries a vibration of lack. And I remember specifically after connecting with my mom, really wanting to connect with her again and it not happening. And then that's when I had that epiphany about how it happened. So yeah, it changed everything for me, but it's all a game of understanding that we have to align with the frequency of what it is that we seek in order to receive it, pick it up, attract it.
Yeah. And so after that awakening, you went into deep research. You began discovering the law of attraction, the law of vibration, as you talk about it, both from a scientific and spiritual view. What would you say were the most groundbreaking insights when you encountered during that phase? And what shifted for you in how you saw your reality?
Well, if you break down the physical world to its purest form, we arrive at the atomic level, which is fairly predictable. Atoms are fairly predictable, right? Very Newtonian. They travel through space to experience time, and we can track them. But what really blew me away was the subatomic level, what the atoms themselves are made from. And when you really research this level, they actually exist as both wave and particle at the same time, exactly. Wave particle duality. And, the wave is this incredible unifying field, and the particle is obviously, the start of physical reality. But what really sort of blew me away, to answer your question, was understanding how the particle exists in a definite position, i.e. physical reality, i.e. everything that we seek to manifest. And it's through observation. And it's known as the wave function collapse, or collapse of the wave function. So in quantum mechanics, what turns the wave into the particle is the way it's looked at, measured, observation. So that, bringing this back to a macro level, so many light bulb moments were going off, because I realized the moment that we change our own observation of reality, and we recognize the observation is the consciousness, the witness, the watcher, the awareness, it's often wrapped in lack and suffering and fear. Well, hang on a moment. The moment we get grip on that and we switch our observation and we start rehearsing, what it is that we seek, just on a micro level, it starts happening on a macro level, because it's all entangled. We start to manifest desires. So to me, it's all about observation. Observation is the fundamental place to start.
And it's all possibilities, isn't it, in the quantum field? There's nothing that you cannot think about that doesn't exist, basically.
Yeah, I love the concept of the many worlds interpretation, or the fact that the unified field, often referred to as the quantum field, or the field, or the universe, it's infinite. Yeah. So hang on, if this field's infinite and it's energy, and energy is always in a state of movement, and that movement is rich in frequency, and frequency carries information, then it's fairly obvious to say then that whatever we seek actually exists as energy.
Yeah, but you made a comparison not so long ago. I watched an interview of you where you compared the human brain, I suppose, or the human per se as a human being, with quantum computing, and
Yes.
you made an analogy with a labyrinth, and I really love that, and I'd like you to kind of go deeper a little bit in what it is exactly that these two things have in common.
Well, Google have a quantum chip called Willow. And in December, their chief technology officer announced that it was able to solve a very complex equation in just under 5 minutes, which would have taken their most advanced supercomputer quadrillions of years, older than the universe. And I was fascinated, and instantly I linked manifestation to it. No one else had, but I had. And because why? Why was that? Well, it's because and I used a maze as an analogy. If you imagine standing at the entrance of a maze, our goal is to get to the middle. But of course, if you and I, Jonathan, or even Google's supercomputer tried to do that, we have to go down each path individually first to find our way. And we go down one, it's a dead end. We come back and we go down another. The supercomputer will obviously get there a lot quicker than you and I, but it's doing the same thing fundamentally. It's going down one path and then trying another. Now, Willow gets to the maze and instantaneously gets to the middle. Why? Because it's in a state of superposition, meaning it can go down all the paths simultaneously at the same time to get to the middle. So if we go back to how it solved this equation, what Google's chief technology officer said in a tweet was it sort of links to the many worlds interpretation that was first sort of talked about in the late 70s, that Willow actually got the answer from a parallel version of Earth where the answer already existed. And that's because, it's the quantum chip is leveraging the quantum field. Now, what's so interesting about this, to answer your question, is if we look at how a quantum computer is actually functioning, it's functioning in ice cold temperatures, the coldest temperatures on Earth. Mm-hmm. So it can capture the wave function collapse and hold the information essentially, whereas a supercomputer is just working normally, just in our normal environment. So quantum computing, their biggest issue is friction, or temperature, or noise. Now, I believe our brains are like quantum chips, and in order to successfully manifest, we have to be more like those quantum chips, and we have to create a frictionless environment. Hence the technology behind you and why that's so powerful. We have to make sure there's no noise from our negative thinking, and we have to create coherence. And I see this so many times myself. When we can create that, we operate more like Willow. But so many people are slipping back into their old ways, and therefore it takes longer because they're more like the computer,
Yeah. But it's not, to wrap your head around the fact that there's only the eternal now is something that it takes time to really get into this concept, right? Because that's really what it is about. All possibilities exist at the same time, and it's just up to us to resonate, with that specific frequency that is already in that quantum field. One of your core principles is that you say that you attract what you are being, not what you want. You've spoken about this, but what does it truly mean for somebody to become what you want to attract? Because I think a lot of people, I'm not saying they have it totally wrong. I don't want to judge here, but there's so much information about manifestation, and there is a certain process, also scientifically backed, which you've spoken about. So, what is that to you? What does that mean to become what you attract?
Who am I being in the present moment? So, human being, who am I being? Hue, a way to describe light, man, manifestation of light, being, how I'm thinking, feeling, and acting, manifests light. So, to me, it's recognizing from an observational point of view, how am I thinking day to day? And am I thinking in alignment with gratitude? Am I thinking like the future version of Matt that's already manifested these goals? Am I feeling equal to it? It's not about faking it till you make it. It's about feeling it till you make it.
Yeah.
Yeah, can I align my emotional state with the future? And then can I behave and act and take aligned action and co-create? So to me, I have a system for how I do that, but mainly the best way is to rehearse it. Why? Because if we can slow down the brain, subconsciously, the brain in alpha and theta doesn't know the difference between what's a dream or what's real. So if we strike a clear vision, a clear intention for that future, and we do that in meditation, the body will react emotionally, and that's being that future. So that's moving beyond want. It's moving into embodiment. It's being the future version of us right now and acting like them. And by doing that, going back to quantum mechanics, we're collapsing away from a state of embodiment in the present moment.
Yeah, but it's all about repeating and doing it on a daily basis to prevent slipping back into that old state. Because otherwise, I mean, I feel it. I think everybody feels it. We are humans, and we have this tendency to look for the path of least resistance, or like simply do what we've always done to get the results that we've always gotten, right? So, why do you think it's so difficult for people to rewire their brains? And I'm not sure whether you, as a coach, you would like to elaborate a little bit on some points of entry you use for your clients, to start getting out of that process.
Sure. Good question. So I always say, are you aware of the voice in your head that often tells you what to do, what not to do, who you are, what your worth is? If you're aware of the voice in your head, well, who's the one listening? The listener is the watcher, the observer, the consciousness, the awareness, the witness is witnessing the default mode network, which is a network in the brain that's been wired through repetition. And the brain's natural default is to save energy. So the path of least resistance is actually the one that you've just been saying over and over again, So firstly, I actually, like I said at the start, we get to know your brain. We get to just be a fly on the wall and just listen from a state of, resistance. Just be aware of what's it saying. It's not you, it's just the default mode network. Yeah. And just listen. And then when we get better at being conscious, we don't fall unconscious, because if we don't do this, then the consciousness is stuck in the default mode network, and then it goes through the brainstem and creates an emotional equal, and we get stuck on a loop. So the moment we become aware, we can practice catching and reframing. And I say to everyone, it's not easy. It takes on average around a couple of months to rewire the brain. But everyone can do it. Neuroplasticity tells us that the brain's not fixed. The brain's very malleable. It can be changed at any time. So the first stage, like I said, is understanding that we have to just watch, just listen, just be aware and journal, and then go from there.
Now become quiet and become the frequency, really, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, one of the things that blew my mind when I was doing the retreat in Mexico is the enormous power of the heart. We all have the heart. Some people think it's just a pump, but it's much more than that. And if we really connect with the heart, and the heart gets into a coherent state, what I felt at that moment is it kind of, you can redirect that intention back to the brain. And when the heart is in coherence, the heart knows, it starts guiding the brain, and, everything you do in your life changes from that perspective of high frequency of love. So how important is the heart in your teachings? And what would you say the heart is to you?
An amplifier, a broadcaster. It's great. I think we can. So many people struggle, actually, in all honesty, Jonathan, to feel it.
Exactly. It's not easy.
No. You can, and the way I like to look at it is, the heart can be measured several feet away from the body, but the brain a few inches. And I think that just says, if you've got an intent, which is a signal and a vision, if you're just in your brain, it's sort of just like here, right? But if it's in your heart, it's being carried out here. I mean, what's the louder signal? It's the heart, right? So the heart, to me, like you said eloquently, is the pump. It's actually, to me, the heart is connecting to the larger consciousness system. To me, the head is the ego, is the character, the avatar. The heart is connected to divinity. So, but on that, people struggle. So for me, it's recognizing that sometimes if we can't get into the heart through the brain, go into the brain first through the heart. and first open the heart through thinking about something that makes you really emotional, and it could be anything. I was with a client yesterday who loves cats, loves them, and he struggles to get emotional about his vision, but he can cry in seconds when he thinks of his cats. So what did I say? Let's think about your cats first. Let's get that heart swelling. That's naturally going to slow down the brain, and then let's divert the focus now from the cats to the vision. So it's like, it's just finding ways that work. But, for people that struggle with the heart, it's not the only way. It's not. No. There is a system, that can get you there if you do struggle to get in through the heart, Yeah.
Matt, you're going to speak at our conference, Be Your Light, in September, and the theme of your talk is going to be the power of intention. So what does intention really mean to you, and how does it differ from wishes, desires, goals, affirmations? What makes intention so specific?
Intention is the clear signal, the embodiment of that signal, the coherent signal of what it is that we're not just manifesting, but what we're mirroring. We attract what we are, not what we want. The way I look at intention is you stand in front of a mirror. The mirror is the universe. It's the reflection. If you're holding a smile, you're going to see a smile in that reflection, right? But if you're standing hoping to see a smile, what you're going to see is a frown. So intention is a combination of all of those aspects together, broadcasted out from the present moment. Intention is the deliberate act, though, of holding that vision and creating or collapsing that outcome. It's understanding that we're not attracting anything in. We're not pulling anything in, right? We're just being the frequency and attracted it in. So that's intention for me. It's a full embodiment of being in the present moment.
Oh, fantastic. And why did you resonate with the Be Your Light conference? Because our tagline is basically a sacred journey into healing, resonance, and remembrance. So it's very much in line with what we do at Beam. At Beam, we offer a certain technology which is called the Energy Enhancement System, which allows people to go back to a state of homeostasis in which the body starts healing itself. And it's all about remembering what we already are. And that's what the conference is really going to be about. And I believe that intention is a fundamental part of it, as you just explained. But why did you resonate so quickly with our conference? And what are your expectations of what's going to happen in September?
Well, I'm very intuitive, and I lead by intuition most of the time. And I just felt it is the honest truth. I felt it in the heart. It sung to me. It felt aligned. It felt beautiful. I love the technology, don't get me wrong, but I just loved it, and I felt my way through, and I checked it out, and it just, there was that nudge inside that just said, this is perfect and this is in alignment. And of course, where I'm in my journey, I'm manifesting these types of opportunities from intention. And it collapsed. You came my way,
and the wave collapsed into the particle.
The wave collapsed into the particle, and it was known as Jonathan, right? And the Be Your Light. Yeah. And that's the honest truth. It felt aligned. And also, actually, it's an illusion to believe that this is our only reality. We're individuated units of consciousness, and we've forgotten what we are. We're part of a larger consciousness system, and the whole point here is to remember.
Yeah, exactly. And we exactly had the same feeling. It just was in flow. We felt it, and there was absolutely no friction whatsoever with none of our speakers. Actually, this thing has come together so beautifully, and our intention is really to create something very special in September that's going to resonate with everybody present. Is there anything that you can reveal of what you're going to bring, or would you rather keep that as a surprise?
Well, when it comes to intention and getting clear on your vision, what I will say is an exercise we'll do together to really drop into our future and really feel it emotionally. And there's certain questions that I've cultivated, if you like, to get clear on your vision, which is the intention. And I've not seen anyone else do it the way I do. I think most people start by saying, what do I want, or what does my future look like? But they miss some very, very important parts, such as, who do I want to be? So I won't say any more than that, but I want people to be left feeling their future at the end of my talk.
Yeah, Matt, there are quite a few people that doubt. They in a way, they feel they resonate with this message, but they still doubt. And there's, you obviously have the skeptics as well. People who wonder, is it really possible to change my reality? Can I change myself? And then because of that question, they get hesitant and they think, it's probably not for me. So what is your specific message to people who are stuck in, I'm not sure whether to call it a limiting belief or something that is kind of preventing them to take that leap of faith and trust their inner self to become that new version of themselves?
Well, firstly, I would say that I was the biggest skeptic,
Okay.
I think we naturally are from the UK sometimes, and for me, I had to demystify it to believe it. I had to study quantum mechanics to believe it. I had tangible evidence, yet I still needed the mechanical aspect of it. So for me, the science is what really demystifies it. And look, I don't need to, there's enough evidence out there now, to prove that this work is real. And even AI now, and even quantum computing can sort of help us with that proof as well. So there's enough proof. But I always say this, if we bring back proof, look, we're seeing less than 0.01% of reality. And that's truth. So I often say to myself, okay, do I want to take a chance in possibility? Do I want to take a chance in the unknown? The unknown is that 99.9%. And I say to myself, well, what would I rather trust? Something that represents 99.9% of reality, or less than 1%, And if it's currently unknown for you, well, then you should trust it.
Exactly. It's a beautiful message. I have a last question for you, Matt, for this, at least this conversation we're going to have. We all dream about a better world, and it's something that I ask all of my speakers. If you were to close your eyes and ask yourself, how will this world look like? What does that mean to Matt Cooke?
Well, the word I use is entropy, which is lowering entropy, which is this beautiful, elegant, coherent, peaceful energy that continues to build and evolve. And I believe that source consciousness is always looking to lower its entropy and looking to remove friction, fear, war. And that's what I believe. And that's what I manifest will be the outcome for humanity here, that we all come together and lower entropy.
Yeah, and manifests hopefully even instantaneously, right? Because you spoke about manifesting, and then the energy taking time in the 3D world to really form itself or concretize. But I do believe that at some point, we humans will also be capable to manifest instantaneously. Well, that's that.
Yeah, and for sure. And I think on that, there's a rule set that we live in here in 3D. Things, time's a very real thing. Gravity is a very real thing. And, there is a sequential rendering is how I like to look at it for things to manifest. But the greater the coherence between us all, the collective observation becomes stronger. And if the collective observation is stronger, then things are going to happen sooner because the intention's stronger as well.
Absolutely. On that note, Matt, thank you very much for this very enriching conversation.
You're welcome. Thanks, Jonathan.
All right. And to the readers, thank you for tuning in to this fantastic conversation with Matt Cooke. If this interview sparked your interest, please share it with your loved ones, your family, your friends, because resonance multiplies by sharing. And if you want to see Matt Cooke live, please come to our conference on Saturday 6th and Sunday 7th of September in Ghent, Belgium. You will not be disappointed. We have 2 days. Day 1 in the historical city of Ghent in the old fish mine, and day 2 at our beautiful health center, Beam. Tickets are available on our website, www.beyourlight.be/tickets. And we hope to see you there. Step into the field, become the frequency, be your light. Thank you very much, and see you then.